Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
Here we are, finally. Okay, guys, here we go.
All right.
Episode number 199. So let's start off the right way. Here we are at the Flipping Houses for Rookies. Pete, that was really lame, huh? I was beat up by technology this
Bill,
morning.
you had a rough morning already. Okay, it's clean slate, Bill.
First I didn't get my text out. Then it was Facebook. Oh, my God. Thank you, Emma. She's in the background yet again, bailing Dad out. All right, so good. Here we are, episode number 199 for Flipping Houses for Rookies. Here's the title and the description, which none of you have heard yet. So you're going to be like, what? The title is, do not listen to this podcast. Do not listen to this podcast unless you want to hear how to wholesale real estate easily. No pressure, guys. No pressure, guys.
All right.
Warning. I put warning. Do not get involved with this podcast unless you hate making mistakes wholesaling real estate deals. If you're interested in knowing how these coaching clients scaled their wholesale business over the last year, you're in the right place, because these two guys are going to pull the curtain back on their growing business and reveal the good, the bad, and the ugly. Just like Clint Eastwood. Let me see here. Cranking up their wholesale profits. Let me catch up where I am here. Once we get through this very detailed interview, you will start to see how to avoid the dangers of doing these deals, these wholesale deals, so everything doesn't go to hell in a handbasket before you even get started. And you're going to leave today, a lot of pressure, right, guys?
Right.
You're going to leave today with, you'll have a good idea of the right and the wrong way to work your wholesale deals. So let's disarm your chances of failure by hearing what Brad and Randy Meyer from Texas have to say about how they started their business and how they got to where they are. And you guys are still growing. We're going to talk about that. So this is not the end all be all. It's just like what you've been through so far, right?
Right.
Yep.
And still in how you're making your profits today while you're out there finding and making deals on a very consistent basis and regular income so you can keep growing. So welcome. Now that we get through all the little details here. Welcome, Brad and Randy. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're excited.
So just so there's a disclosure up front, both of you guys, you're brothers, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you are a coaching client of mine. And what provoked this is that, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were on a coaching call, which we do every Monday night. They're getting longer and longer and harder because more and more guys have deals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somehow or another, I think I asked you a question, or somehow we got into this conversation. Like, I think it was mostly Brad. I don't remember which one of you it was, but we started talking about leads and how you get leads. And then I asked another question and I asked another question. It was like, oh my God, these guys are like really rocking. I mean, I knew you had a good business. I know that you have other businesses. You're both very savvy. And it just kind of provoked me to like, let's do a podcast.
Yeah.
So here we are. So why don't one of you or both of you just kind of describe, a little bit of your background, where you came from, and we'll get into some questions we have.
Awesome. Well, Randy and I kind of took different paths, but we got to joining into an oil and gas company with another partner of ours that we still have up and going today. And it really kind of set the foundation, I think, for us working together, being family members, being partners, and kind of having to go out there and create your own wealth through running a business and all those struggles that come with that. So for the past 10 years or so, that's what we've been doing, is putting together oil and gas deals and running an oil and gas company.
So without a lot of detail, what does that mean, oil and gas deals? What is just a short, I know it's probably not that easy, but.
Yeah, We basically hire other landmen to go, and a landman runs title for an oil and gas company to put a deal together in order to find oil and gas. And so we were part of that process. We were servicing the oil company to go find out who owns the minerals, and then contact them and put the deal together for them so that they can go and drill it. And
So it's a little bit similar with real estate, right? It's like it has to do with land and titles,
negotiating, and
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah. So then just the oil market in general is so cyclical. We were highly invested into it. We were having a hard time getting money out because we were so vested into it. And so in the back of our mind, we knew that there was trouble coming and it wasn't sustainable for the long run. And that's when real estate started to creep into our ears, and we started to kind of study it on the side, got our real estate licenses so that we could kind of start to learn what the numbers are in the market, and did some education. And then really at the end of last year, the oil market started to crash, and a lot of our investments were crashing with it. And it was, the time that it was like, we got to make a move.
So you were motivated.
We were motivated.
Yeah.
And so that's actually how we found you was, part of the problem with that business, and I think a lot of business owners run into this in general, is you actually you own the business, but you're working your business. And we had no way to get away from it and let it run on its own. So we're traveling around, getting leases and working. And that's actually how we found you, was listening to your podcast about creative financing, right. Because we had run into some troubles of trying out different methods of investing. And we thought, man, creative financing offers a great alternative to some of the struggles that we were encountering. So as we were working our other business, that's how we came across you.
Cool. I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
So who plays what roles? So just so we're clear, I don't even know if you have them clear. It's not really something I ever asked you before.
I think we're kind of still figuring it out. Part of what we're trying to do with this entire wholesaling system is removing ourselves and putting in people in place for us to do individual jobs. So I think, honestly, Randy and I wear so many hats, not only of the business, but we also are doing retail real estate. So we're selling houses as real estate agents. So
right.
We're covering a lot of ground. And as we are finding more and more success in it, we're quickly putting other people in place. So I would say, and you'd have to ask Randy, I don't know if he would agree with me, but we kind of wear both hats. Randy does a lot more of the technical stuff. He puts together the flyers, makes sure that all of our social media is going. And I'm coming on the other side, putting out different fires.
Yeah, ultimately we're doing, it's first come, first serve when leads come in, because we got to take care of them as soon as they come in. And our goal is to put people in place eventually for, your acquisitions, your dispositions. But for now, we're just, that's the benefit of having the two of us, is that we're very like-minded. We both know the same way that we would analyze a deal or take care of a deal. So just whoever can get on it first. And if that person, if something gets in the way in life, they can't make something, then the other person will step right in, and there's really no losing any time.
Perfect. Good. So I think you've answered this question already, but like what really, I know you said that you were doing the gas and the oil business. What really inspired you to pick real estate? I mean, what was the thought process behind that? Why real estate? Because you said you have another company, and I think you said you had other investments like stocks and stuff, right? Too, didn't you say that, or no?
Not
other investments. Okay.
Yeah. For me, we did kind of touch on it. It was the fact that we were trapped in our business, and we didn't really have the benefits. We didn't have fringe benefits, all these things. And it wasn't, we were grinding, we were working. It required our time. So real estate had a lot of avenues. I came from a commercial real estate background, so I was a little bit familiar with it. And then our family started to invest in some rental homes in East Texas, and it kind of started to trigger, hey, what if we started getting back into real estate and we really did it right? We automated it. We created systems around it to where if we were on a vacation, our business was continuing to work even though we weren't there working on it. So for me, it was finding an industry that allowed and was open for automation and systems that we could build a structure around that would allow us to take a step away from it and it would still continue to work. But at the same time, offered opportunity to build wealth by acquiring assets that maybe didn't fit the model that we're doing, but over time we can build up that portfolio of houses or real estate in general that would have true wealth down the road.
Sure.
And to add on to that, I would say in oil and gas, with the landman side of things, it's a very service-oriented business. So you got to have a well to service, or you got to have a geological play to service, and that is totally dependent on if someone's drilling. If no one's drilling, we don't have work, and we have no control over that. So what was another good thing about real estate was that there's houses everywhere, there's opportunities everywhere, and it's just a matter of how hard you can hustle, how hard you can grind to make the business happen.
And
so
never stops. It never stops.
Yeah, so that was a nice.
Always somebody with a.
Yeah.
I know Pete and I talk about this all the time. It's what I hear a lot from clients, from students and clients, because obviously you guys know I talk to a lot of people. And what I hear all the time is when I summarize it in my own words, it's like one of the very few jobs you can have in the United States or anywhere where you can work once and get multiple profits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like your job at Denny's, when you go there, you work an hour, you get paid an hour.
Right.
You guys, what you guys are saying, to scale it up, so you go find this drilling site, and as long as they're drilling, you're making money.
Mm-hmm.
The drill shut off, AKA they break, AKA, we don't need gas anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
A storm comes along and you can't work in the storm, you know what I mean? And all these environmental issues that could affect you. But the bottom line is if you stop drilling, there's no money.
Yeah. Little control.
So, Pete, you got anything to say there? I know you're dying to say something. No?
Oh, I'm fine. Just, people ask me, well, why would you do real estate? Is it safe? And I said, go outside. Do you mean go outside? What? Look to the left. What do you see? Houses. Look to the right. What do you see? Houses. Look at, they're everywhere. So, it's a business. You just have to know what you're doing and work hard enough. But people need somewhere to live. Duh.
Sure.
Food, house to live, heat, water, little things.
Environmental protection. Yeah. Little things. So, I know that I think I know this, but I'm going to ask the question just because I want you to, this is kind of like a coaching question more than anything else, and you're going to do it in front of the whole world, right?
Yeah.
I know that when I first signed you up for coaching or got you into the coaching group, you guys had really emphasized how much you wanted to do creative financing and creative real estate deals like we do here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's why I was a little bit surprised when I heard the wholesale stuff that you were doing. But then we talked about it a little bit, and I kind of got a little bit of an answer. So the question is so what is your real focus or real investing focus? You're like, what's the plan? Because you guys definitely do not work without plans. I've noticed that.
We started off for sure, and we still do. It's creative financing, subject to deals, all that is what we ultimately want to do, because I think that's what ultimately builds wealth, is getting all those profit centers.
Right.
But and that's why we reached out to you, is just the professionalism of knowing those creative deals was we were hoping to obtain that knowledge to get them. The problem that we were encountering was we weren't able to convert all of those deals because honestly, wholesalers were offering very similar numbers that we were, and we weren't understanding it. So today our focus also is to just create a revenue stream that's replacing our oil and gas business. And we weren't getting the volume of the creative financing deals to do that on a month-by-month basis. And we were seeing a lot more volume on the wholesaling side of our competitors. So we just basically tried to emulate that model and create a system that was a little bit more automated and systemized for us to just get some inventory coming in that we could eventually get the wealth through creative financing.
So just to clarify that, I think it's episode number 196. I don't have my book with me. It was how to create gargantuan real estate profits in an emerging market. And the book to read in a short, I'm not going to get into it now, but the book to read was written by Dave Lindahl, who's an apartment guy in Massachusetts. You might have heard him. He wrote a book, Real Estate Emerging Markets. There is other literature on it, but he really clarified it. So that podcast is definitely based off of that. You should go buy Dave Lindahl's book. But the point is that I think that I figured out, whether I communicated this to you or not is a different story. But so there's 4 phases of emerging markets, right? So there's a buyer's market phase 1, buyer's market phase 2, seller's market phase 1, seller's market phase 2. Buyer's market phase 1 is like the bottom of the bucket. That's like crashed, like, oh my God, you know, you got to be a total idiot to like invest in that area. Where seller's market phase 2 is the peak of the market. And one of the indicators, and if somebody listening to this show right now wants to hear that stuff, you should go listen to that podcast, because you should spot what market you're in. And one of the things that I really, 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 really admire about you guys is you do this, maybe not the same way I would do it, but you spotted your market. And from talking to you, you know, on the coaching calls and on the phones and stuff, you said that like you just said, the wholesaling was, they were paying as much as you wanted to pay for a subject to deal or a lease option deal. So instead of fighting it, you actually went and made friends with these wholesalers, right?
Right.
And you started proposing them deals. Isn't that kind of how it happened?
Yeah.
That's right. We befriended them, and then we actually, it was on a deal that we were listing for sale, and we got approached by a wholesaler, and that's where we first met them. We would talk to them like, how are you paying what you're about to pay for this property? Didn't make sense to us.
Right.
And he's like, doesn't make sense to me either, but it's an appreciation play. So we're just placing money for a hedge fund and acquiring assets. And the cost for them to borrow the money is a lot less than all the other investors using hard money and everything else. So they're able to get in at a much higher price point, and they've got the benefit of being able to wait it out and let appreciation come back. And so it didn't really matter. The numbers weren't the same for them. So,
I think something that clicked with us was we had a house that we had under contract. We were running our numbers on what's a good profit that we would like to have if we were to flip this based on our ARV, based on our rehab, and you know, what would our profit look like? And so we just threw it out to these institutional and hedge fund players and said, hey, you know, here's our number. And if we had got that, it would be the same as if we had took the time to rehab it and flip it. And they took it. And we said, well, man, you know, maybe we could put it on the market and make a few extra bucks, but if we can just give them the contract and be happy with a profit that if we were to flip it, we would have been happy with, then with no work, what are we doing, you know?
Damn, guys with money every time. Guys with money. Yeah, we went into that up here sometimes. We were looking at apartment buildings. If they get too big, forget it. The guys with money just like, we need to park some money. We don't care.
Yeah.
Hey, you, get out of the way. You, out.
Like we could do this really intense rehab if we really wanted to, or we can just sell it and move on to the next one.
Right.
Well, you know, to me, one of the things is not how much you make, but how fast you make it.
Yeah.
If you make it faster,
well,
do it again.
It's a scale, Peter, because some people will be like, how do you make the money? But once you do 1 or 2 deals or 3 deals, or sometimes it's 10 deals, then you start thinking, how do we do it faster?
Yeah.
But at first, it's just making the money for most people. It's just if they just made 1 deal and made $5,000, they would be like, "Oh my God!"
Sure.
Right? For most of our listeners, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, look, these guys even look smart. Look at them.
We'll pay you later, Pete.
I use Venmo, Google Play.
Good old Peter.
I got money while I'm sitting here. Money just came in. I'm telling you, cha-ching. I'm not kidding. Cha-ching.
Jeez, I'm sorry I'm in Florida. I'd make you buy lunch today if we were at home.
Yeah, well, lunch is beans or something today.
All right, guys. So one of the things that I'm gonna totally keep hammering here, because like I said, I so admire that you guys have done it. So you definitely are, for a lack of better words, definitely disciples of the 7 deal strategies that we talk about all the time. And I like how you just gravitated to the one that works in your area. Okay. So I think we've just kind of clarified that you didn't say, oh, I want to be a wholesaler.
Right.
Right. and you just kind of you went out there, you started getting leads, and you figured out what the market would bear, right?
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't an easy process, right?
No.
Not at all.
And
No.
you spent some money to figure that out. So that's what the question is now, is what do you think the biggest challenge you had to overcome when you first got started, and how do you overcome it?
So it was 1,000% paralysis by analysis for us. It's a common one, but it's you in the beginning, we don't feel confident. So how do you feel confident? You get educated. And the thing with real estate is, no matter how educated you are, there's always something else to learn. And so they'll never stop. And unless you want to be a professor on real estate, it doesn't really make you money to keep learning. So at some point you have to take action. And the deals that you get into, they may not look like what you're studying. You got to put yourself out there and see what do I need to learn, because I may be learning the wrong thing, just like we found, wholesaling.
Right.
I'm over here learning something else that will benefit me later, but right now it's wholesaling because that's what the market's telling me is working.
That's where the checks are coming from.
Yeah, and so at some point you gotta make that leap, and for us to overcome that, I can't speak to everybody else, but for us, it was our backs were against the wall. We were in business for ourselves. We didn't have a comfortable paycheck coming in, or we were looking at not having a comfortable paycheck coming in. So we said, all right, we're on the sidelines now. We got to get in the game. We have to make this work, because the alternative is finding some other job.
Right.
Guys, this gas oil business is supposed to be really bad now with what's going on.
Yeah.
The price at the pumps is, I hear they're giving it away. Here,
They were paying you.
Take my oil, please. Like a Rodney Dangerfield joke. Take my oil, please.
Yeah.
Couldn't be happier we're not dealing with that right now.
I filled my gas tank the other day for $15, and that was like a week ago.
It's wild.
Nice. Yeah. Well, nice, not for us.
No. Well, no.
These guys are like cringing over there.
Yeah.
You should have spent 35, Peter.
Well, on behalf of me and Bill, you're welcome. My story's a little different than yours, but I was looking at, I'm older, so I was looking at how the hell am I retiring and paying my bills and living and all that. So I figured real estate sounded good. I always wanted to do it. So that's when I called Bill. So what are you doing? He was sitting at his kitchen table at the computer. I won't say any pants jokes. But here we are. I'm glad that you guys are, Bill, isn't it weird? You talk about wholesaling. Wholesaling. That's crazy. That's what people learn at the real estate seminars. Like, all you got to do is get a property, flip it, you make 30 grand just like that. And all the poor people at the back run to the table and give their $2,000 to sign up. Like you can go to Home Depot, buy a house and flip it, as a wholesale. But what you guys ran into, because there's money guys down there, it's pretty smart.
Yeah, I agree with you. We were not a fan of wholesaling. We got burned wholesaling in the beginning. We spent way too much money trying, and the reason I think is it just wasn't scalable. We weren't doing enough volume, so we weren't allowing the numbers to work. So on a small scale, I think more people spend more money trying to market to find it than you would if you were to do it on a larger scale.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in a couple minutes on what you do for all that stuff. I mean, I don't want to get into the whole thing, but I definitely want to talk about that in a couple minutes, because that's huge what you just said. It's just me. I'm thick-headed, man. I'm going to keep saying it. You let the market decide which. Now, you guys are ready, because you're in my coaching group, and I see you doing other deals. We're going to talk about that in a couple minutes. You actually separated the businesses, so the creative finance is over here, and you're like cranking it up. So you guys are ready if it switches, because it's possible it will, especially after the virus, right?
Right.
The money runs scared, right? So
Absolutely.
You guys are ready, which is really cool. The point is with the 7 strategies that we talk about in our group, you can switch it just like a light switch. And literally within 30 days, go from one type of a deal to another type of a deal just by tweaking the marketing and doing a few simple things.
30 days. I see you do it in 20 minutes.
Well, I do, yeah.
No, he's in the house. He goes, how about if I do this? The guy goes, nah. He goes, well, how about if I do this? Nah. How about if I do this? Okay. That's it within an hour.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
No,
That's,
Pete,
you know,
you're doing it
yeah.
wrong, Pete. You're doing it wrong. It's like this. I got an idea.
Yeah, like he
How
just
about we
thought
do
of
this?
it.
Yeah, like I
It
just
He's
thought
like,
of
it's
it.
just like, oh, wait a minute. I never thought of this. I wrote a book about it. I did a podcast. It just dawned on
I
me.
did think about it 12 years ago. I just remembered it just a minute ago. The amnesia went away.
No, but it's
All
true.
right.
You can shift gears.
Yeah. So this kind of segues into my next question. So it's like, so what do you do, or what have you done? Not what you're going to do, because we're talking about what you're going to do. What have you done when real estate gets gets really hard because life has gotten in the way? I'm sure, because I think I'm not sure about Brad. I don't know if you have kids. I know definitely Randy does, because I've seen them on the coaching calls. The little daughter, she's beautiful.
Hey, Bill, just to clarify, did you say when life gets in the way or your wife gets in the
Both.
Well, Peter, it's a different question for you.
way? Yeah. No, almost every other day I apologize to my wife that we have to work together to make this work. And for the last week, I've left her on her own. Mary, you're running the real estate empire. I'm going to go over here and get my music lessons. Let me know when you got it figured out. And I've left her alone. She even emailed Emily today. What do I do about it? I don't even know what it is. Like, go ahead, just keep going. It's a little slow, but I'm not pissing her off anymore.
There you go.
So obviously, you guys, you're Texas boys, and just to be stereotypical about it, you don't think small. Texas, everything's big in Texas, right? So
Everything's big in Texas. Yeah.
everything's big in Texas. So when it gets hard and life gets in the way, what do you do? Because I'm sure that happens to a lot of our listeners. Like I decide I want to do real estate, and then next thing you know, you're going to a funeral, or the car breaks, or the goat fell over, or whatever happened. You know what I mean? Something happens. So how do you guys deal with that?
I think that we're really lucky in that, we have a partnership that we've been practicing working on with the oil and gas business, but we're also family. So we call them seasons. So we have seasons of business, seasons of life, and we typically aren't going through all those seasons. I just had a 1-year-old girl now, but at the time, when that baby's born, you have a season where you're not going to be as involved, and then I'm able to cover, or Randy's able to cover for me, and then it happens vice versa. So we kind of have these seasons. So in those bad times, I think that we just are fortunate enough that we have each other to be able to help cover, to where some person can take some personal time to figure out their situation, whether it's a fun thing like having a baby, or whether it's anything going on. But we're able to kind of work off each other as we go through those different seasons.
And I would also expand on that. We have each other to as shared experiences through business, but finding just a person, a group, a partner, just getting into a community of people that are having the same problems that you are, because sometimes it can feel isolating,
Right.
And being able to just vent those things, say, hey, I'm going through this, and someone can say, I did that last year, and yeah, it sucks, but you'll get through it. It's like the community that you've built, and is awesome. The WhatsApp, everyone's communicating and talking about their issues, and I think that's what's important. At least that I had with Brad, before the community, but it's just expanded to just the bigger the network of people sharing their experiences when it's tough, when it's great. Sharing the lows, sharing the highs is what helps getting through those tough times.
Sure, thank you. So I call it it's kind of a weird analogy, but I'm going to tell you the reason why. It's a 2-terminal universe. If you take a battery, it's got a positive and a negative terminal, right? The electricity flows between them, right?
Yep.
If you take away the negative, what happens to the energy and the electricity?
It's gone, stops.
It's still there. It just doesn't move.
Right.
So what you guys have is that, maybe one day Randy's positive and Brad is negative, and then it flips, and then one's negative and one's positive. And I think that's the reason why the coaching group works so well for the guys that are there, because it offers that second terminal so the energy can flow. I know.
Absolutely.
100%.
I know I'll do it with Pete. Sometimes Pete is amazing this way, because I'll be like, I'll call him up and say, I got an idea. And he'll be like, okay, I'm ready. And he'll just sit down, and he's in for a 30-minute conversation, and he just listens and acknowledges me, and he just does his part. It's not even like it's not even like I'm looking for anything other than just to get it outside of me and hear it and work it through with him. And,
Oh yeah.
and he's fantastic that way. And sometimes he has no idea what I'm talking about. Sometimes he does, but he's really good at that. You know?
Bill, I have news for you. I come back about 20 minutes later. I leave and I come back.
He's got the video loop going.
It works just as well.
What an ass. It works just as well, he said. Oh, my God. Huh? We decided about 2 years ago that Peter was the entertainment on the podcast. So he's doing his job.
Totally working.
All right, good. So I think that's important. And you guys, I didn't realize it till your answer just now. I never thought of it that way, but that's very important to have that other terminal or that other thing to make the energy flow, you know, just to keep things moving. And I know you guys are really good at that because I mean, I think one of the things I heard you say in a coaching call is you meet every Friday morning to go over the deals?
Fridays.
And when you meet, you like physically meet in a location somewhere, right?
Yeah. In the office. Yeah.
Yeah. So no matter what goes on, you make sure that and all you're doing is, it's not even like, I mean, I don't know what you're doing because I've told you a few times I'd like to be a fly on that wall. I'd love to hear it. But I know that you're talking about deals and you're just kind of going over them. And I got the insinuation a few times from the coaching call that you spark ideas about the deals by just, you know, two-way communicating about it and just kind of like bouncing it around, and all of a sudden something will happen, right?
Oh yeah.
Just like you just said with Peter, just talking it out, and then it's something resonates with someone else, and they're like, "Oh, that clicked," you know.
Right. So that's really cool. All right, good. So when talking to sellers, and you don't have to answer this question if you want, but when talking to sellers, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you, and how did you overcome it? Because listeners, like you said, because one of the things I think Randy said earlier is analysis of paralysis. It's like we sit on a throne and God forbid somebody talk to us and hurt our feelings. You know what I mean? So like, that's why I'm asking this question, because a lot of listeners will be like, what would happen? You know what I mean? If that happened to you. So I would like for you to kind of share that.
I think there are two different types of sellers. There's sellers that we're prospecting to through marketing and cold calling, and then there's sellers that have invited you to give them an offer. And for those sellers that we're prospecting to, cold calls and whatnot, the worst thing that's happened is they cuss you out, hang up on you, things like that, and it's just another call. And I would say that to overcome that.
Hang on. Yeah. So okay. So how long did it take you to say it's just another call?
So I think that's a personal preference because I don't like it. And it kind of parlays into our systems, but I mean, Rena and I both spent a lot of time on the phone, and it was miserable for us. We hated it as far as cold calling and all that. So we decided that helped push us into the next part of the system, which is, all right, we need to bring in people that don't mind doing that as their job and focus on that. And we can remove ourselves from that aspect of it because we weren't being great at it because we didn't like it, didn't want to do it.
So to add on to that, I would also say that, and we can get into the volume thing later, but when you have a limited amount of leads, you have, I've got 10 calls I can make this week. Each one that is a cuss out hurts that much. It's a tenth of your emotional,
It's what we call scarcity mentality. You don't have enough leads, so you're trying to hang on to every one of them, right?
So if you've got 100 leads to call and someone cusses you out, it's goes, okay, that's great. Get off the phone. I've got 99 more to call. So, so it doesn't hurt as bad because you don't need it as much.
Right. That's a very good point, Randy. Very good point.
And then I say when you're talking to sellers that we're trying to contract, that we're trying to get offers, the worst thing that's happened is just not having the information to make a solid rebuttal to an objection.
Yeah.
And the worst thing that's happened is we didn't get a deal, but we learned a lot by sitting there and listening to what the problem was. And we just didn't maybe know the answer at that time, and it didn't work out for that particular seller. But for the most part, they're there to hear your offer. And there was no stress about it other than just not having the information, which is why, we put ourselves with someone like you to help train up for those different moments.
Learn objections.
Yeah, that's huge.
Train
well,
on
so
objections.
many coaching clients think that they start off thinking they need deal structuring, help with deal structuring. And it all inevitably every single time one-on-one gets down to, well, what did you say to the client and how did they answer you?
Right.
Because if you're going to do any kind of real estate, you're not going to have a broker negotiate for you because they aren't going to be able to do enough for you. You're not going to be able to scale your business and do enough because they'll inevitably want more money, and it won't be profitable for you.
Right.
So you're going to have to talk to the seller yourself because it's just no way that you can do that.
Right.
So just before we get off this question, I want to make sure I'm really clear about why I'm asking this question, because when you're wholesaling, you're given rock bottom numbers, right? The lowest numbers we use. So what do you do about that? Because I'm sure you're getting bashed, like, oh, no freaking way I would do that, or whatever they say, right?
Yeah, and that kind of goes into our system. You know, Randy and I aren't on those front lines as much because we have a system in place with a person who's dedicated to further qualifying leads, to really find motivated people who they'll accept those prices because they're going through a tough season of their life, whether it's a divorce or some reason. We don't know why they want to sell for such low prices, but so Randy and I really aren't on those front lines. We have someone that's further qualifying a lead that is handling those negative objections and frustrations. But when it gets to us, they've been pretty well qualified that they're at least open to the idea of a price in that range.
Right. So there's kind of like a little below the veneer here a little bit, right? There's a little message that you guys are like really delivering that I want to make sure I pull out, because I don't want it to be like a steadfast rule for the listeners. But if you really want to make money in this business, and I found this because of talking to so many people or coaching clients and stuff like that, you really need to figure out how to outsource your deal hunting machine. You know, because if you spend too much time on it, in the beginning, you should definitely do that. You should definitely talk to sellers. You should definitely hear what they have to say. There's no way you guys could do what you do without having been on the phones yourself and having heard some of the rebuttals and some of the things, some of the challenges, because that's how you scaled as you started taking those challenges. I mean, I remember when we first started the podcast, I used to joke around and say, you know how you hire an assistant? Do you know how to write a job description for an assistant? And it's not even a joke. It's true. What you do is you write down everything you hate to do. I call it my shit list. It's a shit that I don't want to do, right? And then it's like, there's your job description. And they're like, oh my God, I love doing this kind of stuff. I mean, no offense to Emma. I love her to death. Of course, she's my daughter, but
she loves doing the stuff you hate doing, right? So
you heard me cussing about just, I had to change browsers to go from Firefox so we could record today. I'm like, rah, rah, rah. She's like, no, Dad, no problem. We'll take care of it. And she loves it. You know what I mean? So, so I don't want to like have people think that the only way to make money in wholesaling is that you have to outsource and kind of get the stuff. But you have to admit, when you get that noise out of your ears, it's a lot easier to deal with the deals and the people when you don't have 99 suspects to find that one prospect.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? It's a lot easier. So, and the reason why you guys, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, but the reason why you guys were able to do this is because you did a couple deals. Instead of taking the money and going and buying a new car or a house or whatever, you reinvested into the business. And I have found, I've never said this before, Peter. I had this thought the other day. I have found that the coaching clients that do that never go more than 5 deals. And they're completely set up their business and have all the tools and they have everything they need. It's usually 3 deals. So it's 1 to 3 deals. They take the money in, they invest it in their business, they buy all the tools they need, whatever training they need, and after that, it's just the marketing, which is a percentage of the return they're making.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right. So, if you can't make your training back in 2, 3, 4, 5 deals, then you're spending too much on training and you're not applying, and you're in that paralysis analysis and blah blah blah. Right.
Right.
Agreed.
Okay. So. Good. So I don't think you answered me. Maybe you don't want to. What's the worst thing that ever happened to you? You have one thing that like kind of sticks out, or no? You don't. If not, that's fine. We'll just move on.
Randy, our first one was tell that story.
Well, I'm talking about trouble, right? Like, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you? So, oh, you're talking about a deal that went sour?
I mean, just prospecting, but there really hasn't been a very bad experience, to be honest.
No?
It's
Beautiful.
it's all in what you internalize. Uh it's a personal thing. I mean, as far as like the biggest thing you've gotten in trouble with, I mean, we haven't been sued, we haven't uh lost money, we've just lost deals, and we've you know, been embarrassed because we didn't know what we were talking about, you know, or we know enough to get in trouble, and then the further you go down, you realize you don't know what you're talking about, and then
Right.
you lose a deal. But if you can learn from that mistake and protect yourself for the next one, then eventually, you know, you won't have these problems. But we haven't had any
Good.
in any kind of like financial trouble with it. It's all how thick of a skin can you grow, and then just keep making sure you're learning from your mistakes.
And I think we should probably take away from what you're saying there, Randy, is that, you know, I think the most important thing I heard you say is that we learn from our mistakes. And you guys are really good with that. So, you know, it doesn't like stick and you're like, oh, we should never done that again. It's more like, I'm glad we found that out now so we don't have to do that again.
Right.
You know, it's
Exactly.
a totally different viewpoint. All right, good. So let's get down to some meat and potatoes, whoever wants to do this. Let's go over some of your stats. So how many deals a month on average, you know, not a steadfast thing, but recently have you done, you know, kind of like the progression?
4 is our average and our goal.
Okay. And that's just recent, right? Because it's taken, how long did it take you to get up to that point, do you think, to start doing 4 deals a month?
So our story, we just started ramping up, honestly, over the past couple months. And so the first month was like a couple, and then to get up to the 4 mark. So we haven't been doing it, you know, for years on end. It's only been for the past several months. And, you know, we're looking to find another market to go into and expand to increase that. But 4 is our goal. 4 has been our average, and we're working on our conversion to try and get up to like 6 or 7.
Nice.
And you know, it takes, we started our massive marketing when Brad's talking about when we started that, so it takes a little bit of time to ramp up to that, but we got to our goal of the 4 deals a month, and now we're looking at how do we optimize and how do we expand.
So when you say it takes a little while, you're talking weeks, you're talking months, you're talking quarters, you're talking years?
I say if you're lucky, you get, you know, maybe a deal right when you start marketing, a new style of marketing like cold calling or a new list. But usually it takes follow-up, and it takes a couple of months because someone might not be ready for, at least in wholesaling, someone might not be ready at that time, but then you never know what happens a month from there, 2 months from there. Something, life event happens, and you just keep following up, and then they're ready. So it's the more people we can get into our CRM from our list that we can follow up on, that's when you start converting those deals and you get up to those higher monthly deal flow numbers.
So CRM is customer relationship management. It's software to keep track of the clients.
Right.
So are you guys going to be bold enough to tell me what your biggest deal was, dollar-wise?
Yeah, our biggest deal, we netted $94,000.
Nice.
Wholesale?
Yeah, it was a wholesale. We actually called the guy about a property he didn't want to sell. And we asked the magic question you should always ask is, do you have any other properties you're looking to sell? And he said, well, yeah, now that I think about it. And so it was his old home. They had built a new home in another city, and it had a lot of distress. And we decided to put a little bit of work into it. I know we usually don't like to put money into deals we don't own yet, but we did a mixture of wholesale and wholesale, I guess. We got his insurance to cover the roof, and we put a little bit of work into landscaping. Learned a couple of lessons. We found a beehive. Luckily, it wasn't in the walls. So that would have been really expensive, but it was in the eaves. So we did a little bit of prettying up just to be able to ask the top wholesale dollar. And so we got it under contract for 90, and we sold it for 190. And after all the kind of touch-ups and everything and expenses, we netted 94.
Nice.
Nice guys.
That's impressive. Well
And
done.
he gave that number to us. We didn't beat him down from, you know, a high price. He basically gave that number to us.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Everyone says you'll know a motivated seller when you talk to them. It's clear as day. And the good deals, I think, are ones that you don't have to fight them. It's an easy conversation because they're motivated. And so that was one of the good ones for sure. We don't expect to do those every month, but they're always nice to have.
So to be completely crude and rude and a total guy, okay?
That's not your style, Bill.
No, that's not my style. Let me do something different here, right? To me, Peter takes his headphones out. So to me, a coaching client, when they hear a motivated seller and actually know what they sound like, and they meet one and actually talk to one and deal with one, is no different than a human being having sex the first time. It's like a game changer. It's like, it's just one of those milestones in life, or like a human being receiving a paycheck, or driving a car for the first time. It's one of those milestones that just changes your life like forever.
The light bulb.
And what's that?
It's just like a light bulb, like, oh.
Yeah. And it's not something I can teach. I can just kind of like guide someone to find that person. But once it happens to them once, coaching becomes a whole lot easier for me, because they're much more believable. They're not questioning things, and they're like, I know what I'm looking for.
Right.
So that's interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah. So what's the least profitable deal you've done?
$3,000 assignment fee.
3,000. So you've gone from 3,000 to 93,000.
94.
Yep.
Guys, how long did it take you to get the 3,000? How much time did you put into it?
That one was
go ahead.
a flyer. Yeah, we just sent out a flyer, and it was in foreclosure, and we had no idea what we were doing. So we basically just took down the notes of what he was saying. He had like 3 weeks before the auction was coming up. And so I would say it was just one round of flyers. We answered the call and listened to what he had to say, and didn't really know what to do with it. Hadn't dealt with foreclosures or all that. So I called a bandit sign and just asked the guy if they would be interested in a deal. And we tried to do the whole $10,000 wholesale model, and he beat me down to $3,000. I'm like, okay, can you just teach me how you're doing it if I give you if I come down to 3,000?
Wait a minute, Brad. Wait a minute. Whoa. Slow this train down. Wait a minute. You put a flyer out. Somebody with foreclosure called you. You had no buyer's list. You had no idea what you're doing. You called a bandit sign, and you made $3,000. That's not true. That can't be true.
Very true.
No way that could happen.
Very, very true. And I still talk to the guy to this day. He's a good, good buddy.
So guys, how many hours? 6, 10?
No, 2.
Yeah. I mean, just a
and
couple follow-up calls to make sure it's in contract.
So you only made $1,500 an hour. You suck.
Terrible.
Peter.
Yeah, and that was interesting because it was a sub. We did it sub 2, so we wholesaled a creative deal.
Okay, good.
So you bought the property subject to under foreclosure?
Yeah, and we bought it for what he owed, so he just wanted to get out of it. And then Brad found the buyer.
Wow. I love hearing stories like this. And I'm glad you guys are telling us, because I usually hear these behind closed doors. So when I'm writing my emails and I'm doing whatever, it's like, all you have to do is pick up the phone and talk to a seller.
Yes.
And you guys literally, you sent out a flyer. How did you send the flyer out? You remember? Like, did you put them somewhere? Did you mail them?
We just mailed them. Yeah, we just got the foreclosure list for the month and just mailed out just the typical postcard. And he called us, and he was in panic. He was foreclosing, and we didn't know what to do either. But we acted like we could, and literally called a bandit sign for somebody else, and to learn how to do it.
Fake it till you make it.
Exactly.
And it was a lesson to us that you got to talk to your real estate attorney and get your forms right and all of that. You got to know a little bit, but if you do this process by analysis by thinking, well, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know if this is a deal or not, but just if you send offers out, you get it under contract, you have your inspection period, you put it out there and see if you can make something out of it, and you might surprise yourself like we have. And it was a lesson of just, even if you don't know what you're doing, give it a shot. Worst case scenario, you can't help them, but try your best and see what happens.
And that's also another good point, because we talk about that a lot in the coaching group as well, is that one of my pre-qualifiers, okay, in getting into the coaching group, because I'm kind of at max now, so is what's the intention of the client, the coaching client? Is it all just about money? I mean, I harass Peter all the time because Peter says he's in this business just for the money. He doesn't, he wants to do music. He doesn't want to, it's like,
no, I have something better in mind than that.
Oh, okay. But, I tease him about it because he's the only one that's in my life that I allow that, because the coaching clients, I don't allow that. So it's like, what I like to hear is we like to help people. We want to help people. We want to help people. You're helping your sellers. You're helping buyers. Not that the money's not important. The money is very important. But if you put your first foot over the threshold in somebody's house, knowing that you may not make a deal, it's a total numbers game, that you may just come in, and just by virtue of going through the cost to sell worksheet with them and educating them on how much it's going to cost them to sell their house is like a PhD in help. They've never heard it. They have no idea about it. They're clueless that this could even happen.
Right.
And just doing that opens, because what happens is it starts to build trust and starts to build rapport, and it does all these natural things that you don't even have to, you can go to Grant Cardone's, sales class and learn how to, sell an Eskimo ice, and all that kind of stuff, which he's really good at, which you should do, because Grant Cardone is amazing. Right. But you don't need to do all that. Just be real, make mistakes. That's the most valuable thing I could teach any client, is make mistakes. That helps the deal.
Right.
I don't trust anyone that hasn't made mistakes.
Yeah,
That's how you
totally.
learn.
Yeah, totally. And if you go in and you tell them this is my first deal, or I'm new, or they'll help you. If they're motivated, they'll help you.
Yeah,
100%.
Because they want it more than you do.
Right.
Right. So that's a very good thing. Okay, so is there, this is a trick question, and if you can't answer it, that's totally fine, but is there like one secret on how you got this far? What do you think that would be? If there was, what's the one, I won't even call it a secret, but the one thing that you feel like really got you this far?
I think it's really hard to say one thing, but from a practical standpoint, the one thing has been outsourcing or automation.
Yeah.
And that's just because for the wholesaling business that we put together, it would be impossible for us to be in all places. Once we turned up the deal and now we're going to work on the disposition of the property, that means we're not doing all the follow-up, making all the cold calls. Right. And so it wouldn't work. So for a volume-based wholesale business, for like we're doing, I think for me, automation with systems is what is the secret behind our system.
Randy, you agree with that?
Yeah, it's consistency. And if you can do it, more power to you. If you can be consistent with all of the plates spinning in the business. I mean, I still remember when we got our first deal together, it's all of a sudden dispositions comes at you hard and fast. Like, man, I got to get on this fast. We have a foreclosure coming up. We got to get this thing done. And then you told yourself you're going to call 4 hours a day. And
right.
That just goes out the window because it feels productive. You're doing dispositions, but you got a bottleneck.
Right.
And finding a way to be consistent, whether you can outsource it or if you can do it yourself, I think is what we're talking about. So for volume wholesaling, consistency means outsourcing.
Right. But that's on the actual business front. I do think that a coaching group and really, there's a lot of information that's out there, and having a group that, like our chat is very active with people running into problems and answering questions. And then we have our weekly calls. So I think having that in your back pocket to when you do run across a funny situation, to be able to know how to navigate that is fundamental to the business as well.
Or have heard about it on the call, and then you run into it, you're like, oh, I
exactly.
remember that.
Yeah. Right.
Somebody else did that, like just for example, I mean, last Monday night in the coaching group, Phil, one of our coaching clients, was like, okay, so I have the subject to documents done. They're signed. I have them on my desk. What do you do?
Right.
And I just, I don't think nothing of it. I'm not bragging, but it was like, okay, here's the first thing. And I broke it down in those without even thinking about it. It's like, do this first, do that second, do this first. And he's writing it down. Right. So I think one of you guys actually at the end of the night, because we go around the table and we say, what did you get out of the call? And I don't remember which one, but one of you were like, oh my God, you broke down what to do with the subject to paperwork. And it helped you, even though you weren't doing that deal at that moment.
Right. Right.
Like, because it broke it down and it's like, oh, now I know what to do. It just kind of popped up. Right.
Exactly.
So, absolutely cool. All right, good. So I wanted to go over your system, just kind of like streamline it, kind of like what you do. Like how do you find deals? How do you kind of convert them, right? And what do you think some of the biggest challenges are on making your deals? I definitely would like you to, because you talked about it at least 3 times that I've counted in my mind, about the follow-up, because you have a absolutely positively over the top genius thing that you do with your follow-up that I've never heard anybody and I've got over $100,000 worth of training in my real estate career, and I've never heard anybody do what you guys do. So however, go ahead, start.
Well, as far as finding the deals, we used to go real targeted because we didn't have the budget, but because we have the budget now and we're doing the volume wholesaling, we just do a large list. We do the areas that are near us now. We're expanding to other virtual markets, but it's finding areas where there are cash sales. So you go to list source and you can see where the transactions are happening. And then you can pull those lists. And so we pulled about 100,000 numbers. And
so that's the name of this website, listsource.com. He's not saying go to a list source. It's listsource.com. Go ahead.
And we pulled about 100,000 numbers. Our criteria is pretty loose. It just has to have enough equity and be old enough to where there's some distress. And we just attack that list. And we just know within that list are your foreclosures, your water shutoffs, your, all those motivated lists. But you can spend a lot of money trying to find the right list, and then it wasn't the right one at the right time, and you lose it. So we're just calling everybody. And because we have, now we have creative solutions, we have our license, and we're mostly doing wholesaling, we know that we can, if someone's really trying to sell, we can help them.
Okay, so let's break this down a little bit, if you don't mind. So how big is your list? What do you normally buy? How many names?
We buy a bulk of 100,000. Yeah.
Okay. And but how long does it last you?
We go through about 20 to 25,000 numbers a month.
Okay. And how much has a list of 100,000 cost, a ballpark?
Do you know, Randy?
I think it was $1,000.
Yeah, I was going to say around probably $1,000. But that'll last you 3 or 4 months, so it's $250 a month technically, right?
But on top of that, when we say we're calling 20,000 numbers a month, that doesn't mean we got a hold of 20,000 people.
Right.
So for us to have actually spoken with on the phone 100,000 people, you can use that list for years. You just have to make sure you don't wear it out with the same number.
Nobody gets off the list. We add to it. You get on the list, you stay on the list. There's no do not call in our world.
Go, Brad. Even if they die, you want to know who got the property.
Exactly. You do not get off the list. But we do recycle it. And like Randy said, we don't talk to 20,000 people every month, but we get through about 20,000 people with our cold calling, and that filters down to about 20 viable people that we're really looking to, 20 good leads. And we're also a month.
So you go from 20,000 names to 20 leads that you work.
200 leads and then 20 viable leads.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. 200 leads out of that. And then 20 of those are viable.
Okay. So I want to make sure I get this straight, because I could be a dumbass. So it's 20,000 names comes down to 200 people that be like, yes, I'd like to talk about it.
Get an offer. Yeah.
And then 20 people are where you're actually crunching numbers and on the phone and negotiating.
Yeah, most of them are just getting off the phone, just saying, yeah, I'm interested in selling, call me back. And then you call them back and they say, no, I'm just trying to get off the phone. So
right.
20
Okay,
that were actually serious.
So just because I can see on Facebook some of the people I have on the call, which, hello, Mr. Kyle, I haven't talked to you in a while. It's nice to see you're here.
Hey.
Kyle Fetterman, you remember Kyle?
Yeah.
Kyle.
Yeah, he's here checking us out. So hello, Kyle. So a couple people, just if you don't mind, if I get too nosy, then just tell me no, we don't want to answer, and that's totally fine. So you're using a dialer, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So a dialer means that the VA or the person calling, the virtual assistant that's calling, it dials, the phone dials and dials until somebody picks the phone up, and then it stops dialing.
Right.
What system are you using to do that? Is it what is it?
We're using Call Tools.
Oh, Call Tools. Okay. So that's a website?
Yeah, Call Tools.
Okay, so it's just calltools.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. And so they use the dialer. You upload the list to the dialer. It calls until somebody picks up the phone, and then you have a script, obviously.
Yep.
That's not a script you got from me. So is it something you bought, something you made, something you got somewhere else?
It was actually from before you. It's called Talk to People, TTP. It was the script that
Brent Daniels program
with Brent Daniels.
Good, Brent Daniels. Okay. Write that down.
It's very basic.
Very casual.
But people can go find it there.
Yeah.
Talk to people.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
All right,
TTP.
so then, TTP. So they go through the list. They do the script, right? And then what happens? They say yes or no to the script?
Right. They are either interested in an offer or they're not. And those that are, we get about 200 people per month on average that said that they are interested in receiving some kind of an offer. And then that goes into our CRM, which we use Podio.
Okay.
And we have a dedicated full-time person in charge of doing further qualification. So our cold caller says, we'll get back in touch with you. And a dedicated person then calls them back, ideally within like 5 minutes if possible. It then does a further qualification of them. And from there, their job is, they're strictly trying to get it down to like, would you be willing to take 50% of the ARV?
But that second call is scripted as well.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's a little bit more loose because we're trying to get more data out of them. So it just kind of depends on the personality and the motivation.
Yep.
But we do have a skeleton of the information they need to pull. We want to know everything. We want to know as much of the details about this property and their motivation as possible so that we can put them in the bucket. Are they in the wholesale bucket, the creative solution bucket, the retail bucket? What kind of lead is this? So
right. So then that person gets done and says, okay, so these are virtual assistants, right?
Yes.
Are they from the Philippines?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
About how much an hour are you paying per guy, per person?
$450.
It kind of ranges. 7 is on the high end, and I would say 5 is on the lower end.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now I have actually we should talk because I have a service that we're paying $4 right now, and they're pretty good. And it's a service where there's a service where they actually have a supervisor and everything. So it's not just like a VA in a house somewhere. Okay.
That's very similar to what we have as well.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that. Yeah.
The interesting thing about that, just to divert for a second, is because of this pandemic, they're kind of struggling with work, and that's how I was able to get that number. He volunteered it to me. I didn't.
Oh, wow.
Because they're trying to keep their VAs busy because obviously, America is a big portion of their business, and
sure,
half of it shut down. So, all right. So the cold caller has the 20,000 names or whatever. Dial. Yes, I'm interested. Goes into Podio. He puts it in, or she puts it into Podio, and then the admin person picks it up.
Right.
And they do another call. So are they using the same call tools?
Yes.
Yes.
Call? Okay, good. And is it connected to Podio?
Yeah. Our systems are connected to Podio. So when our initial cold caller is calling, they have Podio fields, or I'm sorry, call tool fields that link to Podio fields, and they can transfer them over, fill in some extra notes, submit it. We've got automation to where we call them a lead manager, the admin person you were speaking of, that calls them back. So they get notified, new lead, call them back as soon as possible. If we're seeing a lot of delays with that, then that's, we go and talk to them about it.
Right.
But we're trying to get them to call back quickly and then further qualify. If the cold caller can get all of the motivation and all that information, that's great. But we really want them to be chewing through the list and letting someone else spending more time on that.
Then what happens to it?
If it's underneath 55%, it automatically goes to us. They've got permission to just lock it up under contract, and then they send it to us, and we further verify and then coordinate how to do a DocuSign.
55% of what?
ARV.
The Zestimate. We just use the Zestimate.
So you're using Zillow estimate. So if the VA sees, go ahead.
We use the Zestimate, PropStream, PropStream is another website with valuations, PropStream.com, or Redfin. We kind of merge them together into a blended AR. We just need a basic idea, number to if they're at 55% of those numbers, we're close.
So you take those three numbers and average them, and then do 55% of that.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
And then that's it's we see the initial offer at that point as a start of the conversation. It's here's where we're at. We don't know if that's where we'll end up based on what your response is to us and based on the further condition of the property. But that's the easy way. Just get something under contract and then we go check it out.
Okay, so this admin, or this lead generator, you're calling them, right? A lead generator. Lead manager will, if it's 55% of the ARV number, they'll actually draft a contract, a purchase and sales contract?
No, we do that, but they have the authority to tell them, like, go ahead and verbally go into, like, let us get the contract over to you. So they've mentally already kind of agreed to a number. And then Randy and I will decide if that's actually the number we want to go forward with. And if we need to come back for, those numbers are off. And
they'll schedule an appointment for us to go over the contract with the seller, because we find that just sending a DocuSign is the odds of it coming back signed are very low. So if you actually schedule an appointment, signing appointments, and you walk through with them on, here's the contract. Do you have any questions? Let me walk through it. Let me, here's where you sign. Let me know if you have any questions. And we find that getting it signed is a lot more likely if we're on the phone walking them through the process.
Yeah, so I've had the same trouble with my other deals with coaching clients. If they don't go through the paragraphs and explain it, and they won't sign it, or they'll get into a whole thing like, I got to give it to my attorney or go get some help because they're afraid that they're going to get slammed with something they didn't expect.
Right.
So how do you do that? You do that by phone, or you do that by Zoom, or?
We try Zoom. We do phone, just whatever. Okay. It depends. Some are tech savvy, some are not. Yep. As you know.
Yeah.
So
I'm a fan of that club.
So yeah, I mean, most of the time it's phone. Sometimes we can do Zoom, but ideally Zoom, because then they can put a face to the name, and it's a little bit more personal.
Correct.
So,
correct.
But
all right, so they say yes, you send them, and it's DocuSign. So it's doc, like document, DocuSign. Right, like umbrella, DocuSign. You send over the contract. You go over with them on the phone. They sign it. Then what do you do?
It goes to our
pictures. So what do you use for that?
We use someone you told us about, the We Go Look. Initially, it was us going out there, but We Go Look and is a service that they'll go take pictures for you, and then that way we can further verify what the property looks like, and so that's the next step. And then once we get the pictures, we put our dispositions package together. We send it to our mail list. Before we did send it to the mail list, we talk to our preferred buyers. If we can get the number that we want right off the bat, we don't need to put the go through the rigmarole of the big mass marketing. But if it doesn't work for them, then we go to the next step of marketing on Facebook Marketplace, through our mailing list, just kind of everywhere we can get the deal out there.
So you guys must be full of shit, because you're telling me that you could buy houses without even leaving your desk, wholesaling houses? Wait a minute. How could this be?
We did our first deal through text message, never saw the house, just text message the seller and the buyer through text.
Yep. Imagine that.
You can do it.
Crazy.
I have a girl in the coaching group of Fatima I think she's got 4 or 5 kids. And when she ever told me she was doing that, I almost fell out of my chair. I'm like, what?
It's crazy.
And with her, it's even worse, because she's up at night when the kids are sleeping. She actually schedules the text, because we use text magic, right? So she schedules the text in the morning while she's taking care of the kids. So when she's done with whatever her routine is, she sits down on her phone and she just answers the text. She doesn't even have to send them out. You know,
it's a new world now.
Yeah, totally. All right, good. So we are about 90 minutes into this podcast, I think. I wasn't keeping track of the time when we started. So we're not done. We're going to go just a little bit longer. If you guys are okay with that, is it okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay, because I want to drop the bomb right now and keep the listeners listening, okay? So
Okay.
please reveal the follow-up machine.
So our follow-up, we are constantly changing phone numbers, changing our company name, changing the person who's reaching out to them. So the first time that we reach them, it may be a name, just pick a name, Mel buys houses in Dallas, and a phone number. And then depending on how that goes, if we can't reach them, they get recycled, and then we have a new name, a new company name, and then a new phone number about every 2 months or so. So they're always getting hit up with a new name, new company, new phone number. So by the time that we hit them, like we see them, they may have been marketed to 3 times, over the course of 6 months. And keep in mind, if they say,
but it's all you. It's all you with just different company names, right?
Even if we talk to them, we could be negotiating with them and we couldn't work out a deal. Behind the scenes, they're still being marketed to with a new name, a new company name, still us. So they're getting hit up with the same low numbers that over the course of 6 months or however long that is. So our follow-up never stops. It's just always evolving with new company names. So they may, by the time they actually say yes, have been hearing a message that their property is worth 50% of what they thought it was.
Group agreement. Everybody thinks that.
Right. So it must be.
Yeah.
So that's our strategy with follow-up behind the scenes.
Genius. Genius.
And part of the problem is that in the market that we're in, everyone thinks their shack on a lot is worth $500,000 because there's
the guy across the street. They sold his for that.
Right. And you gotta help educate them that that's not what it's worth. And if you truly want to sell, then you need to be at this number. So that's the solution we found.
Yeah. So
but it's nice for us because our system, we don't see that person or talk to them until 6 months down the road, and they've heard that message 3 or 4 times, and then they finally say yes, and then to us it's the first time new lead. Right. But our team has been hitting them up so many times.
All right, just because I'm going to get support tickets on this. So these businesses that you say you start every 2 months, are you starting a new LLC, or you're just
they're just names.
Name.
They're just names, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they ask, about the specific name, is and we do own multiple LLCs for different purposes, and we don't know which one we're going to put it in depending on how we're going to on our disposition. So we just come up with names just to kind of whatever you're thinking, that for that quarter or that couple months.
If the seller is really trying to dig into, we do kind of run into that sometimes, and at the end of the day, it's never a really motivated seller. We do have a website that we can go to and kind of get to know about us, but that may not be the company name that we reached out to them under. And if they're really digging into it, it's just not our motivated seller. The people that are motivated, they don't care. You're solving the problem. We're helping them in a bad spot, and the last thing they're doing, for the most part, is trying to put the dots together of, did this company call me? Is that the same person? If you can solve the problem, they want to work with you.
So Brad, this is huge because I want to cover 2 things in this short conversation, okay? because I get asked a lot. Personally, this is what I do. Now, you guys are realtors, so you have another layer that you have to deal with. But I get this question a lot, like, what name do you like? How do you deal with, should I start an LLC first? Should I? And I'm like, no, you don't need to do any of that. I didn't start an LLC until I started doing multiple deals. You don't need any of that. As long as you could deposit the money and claim it on your taxes, it doesn't matter. It's just really protection. The more protection you feel like you need, the more these devices you need, right? So
yeah, I think it's just an excuse to not do something. I need to have an LLC.
Totally, yeah. And go off and do that for a month, right? So right. The point that I'm trying to make here is that I, for probably 2/3 of my deals, nowadays it's not like that, but I had a partner and he had multiple LLCs. So I would tell people when I was sitting in the houses, I don't know what company name we're going to, I'd fill out the purchase sales contract and I'd be like, I'm going to put my name on here and put a slash here because I don't know if I'm going to use my company name or my partner's name. I don't know. And if you just tell them that, that's fine. The other thing is that a purchase, this is very important. It's not a purchase and sales contract. It's not called that. It's a purchase and sales agreement. There's a difference between contract and agreement. Contract is you're buying. Agreement is here's what we've settled on so far. Let's go to our own corner of the boxing ring and figure out what we're going to do, and then we'll come back out and meet again. Right? Exactly. I might bring my lawyer and my closing agent into money, or I may come back and say, well, what about this? Right? So when you're signing a purchase and sale agreement, it just gives you, it just shows that you're serious to the seller and that you're going to do your due diligence. And if they're hiding anything, you're going to hopefully find it. Right?
Exactly.
That's really all it is. So what I'm saying is that signing the purchase and sales agreement does not need to have the same name as the name that you're going to close in. Unless you're doing REOs or real estate owned with the bank, they're finicky about that because the bank feels like their money is the most important. And God forbid you make 5 cents off of them. They don't like that. Right? Very suppressive, but if you want to deal with that suppressive environment, then go ahead. But in the real world, you don't need to do that.
Right.
Same thing when you're a realtor. So what I say is that you don't need to reveal that you're a realtor until you're ready to sign agreements. Then you say to them, by the way, I'm a realtor. And they don't care. They don't care at all. The Realtor Association snobs are more stuck up on it than the seller.
Yeah, if you're solving their problem, then it doesn't matter.
So
it's all disclosed in those contracts and agreements anyway.
Yeah. So you don't have to, in my world, you don't have to worry about the LLCs. You don't have to worry about what name you're going to put it in. You don't have to worry about whether you're licensed or not licensed until you get to the agreement and everybody's signing everything. Then you kind of like get all the cobwebs off the table and say, here's what's really happening. Just explain it to them before they sign it and it goes away.
Right.
Okay. So just to back up for a second, the follow-up stuff that you're doing. So you just pick a name. So are you regurgitating virtual assistants or hiring more on follow-up when you change a name?
Oh, no, it just goes into, it's a team of cold callers. And,
the same VAs.
Okay.
We're not rehiring or
just
cycling them.
Okay, so one day they're ABC company and the next day they're XYZ company.
Yeah, they don't remember the initial conversation. They just, or the sound of the person's voice. They just remember they did get an offer from another company.
No, but does the VA is the VA always from ABC and the other one's always from XYZ? Or do you
no, they rotate.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's the list that changes the name.
Right. So the list, okay, so that's good. So the list are named on what the name of the company is going to be.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So they'll get a new list and then that'll be from recycled names.
So how many times will you change a name before because I know one of the things you do is at the end you go into creative deals, right? That's the last thing you do. So how many times will you change the name of a company and follow up before you get to the creative stuff? Is there a number?
If it gets to us, are you talking about like if it gets to like when do we change the name? Like the name that they originally talked to, when it gets to us, then by that point they're motivated enough that we're just putting our actual company name. We're going to close on the agreement.
Yeah. So my question, let me reword it. So a person says no, then they go to another company name. They say no, then they go to another. How many times do you do that? Once, twice, three times, 5 times?
Right now, we haven't been doing it long enough to let that cycle go through.
Okay, I see. That's a fair answer.
We've done it probably 3 or 4 times now.
Right. Just from a marketing standpoint, if I had to pick a number, and it's a complete guess just from my marketing education, would be 6. Because most people don't start hearing you from between 4 and 6 times. So if you don't get them by the 6th or maybe the 7th time, you're not going to get them. Right. So what triggers the creative real estate? Is it something they say, or is it something at what point do you start calling them about doing lease options and option deals and slot deals and stuff like that?
So when the cold caller brings a lead in, we had that 55% number that goes to wholesale, pretty cut and dry. We are, when the lead manager gets on the phone with that lead, they are trying to pull out their asking price. We have some information we need, and instead of trying to force somebody into a wholesale price, we just say, well, what do you want out of this? What are you looking to get? And
what would have to happen for us to buy your house?
What would have to happen for us to buy your house today? And based on what they want, we have 7 solutions that it depends on the percentage of what they want to what the value of the property is, and then we can try to structure something that gets them what they want. And so that's how we start going down. So then we will follow up on the creative side, and once we have all that information, we'll structure some offers, kind of go over those with them, and that's kind of how we get to the creative side.
40% of my coaching group has been to the Than Merrills or the Ron LeGrands of the world. And the reason why they come to me is because obviously, and I'm bragging about this because I have rights to brag about this. They come to me because they want to make a deal. They spend all that money to make a deal. But the first thing that I always hear when I know the ice has been cracked is, oh my God, I've been throwing those deals away. I was taught how to do wholesale. And I'm like, there's deals like the slot deal. Oh my God, I see them all the time and I can't do anything with them.
Right.
And you guys are the same. Right. And I think it just warms my heart, cackles my heart to know that, that those deals, like you're going through them multiple times and you actually use the question, because it's a brilliant question. What would have to happen for me to buy your house today? And they give you a number, and it just opens the door to another commission or another fee or another, we've even got it down to the point now where my VAs actually say to them, one of the offers that we give them is we'll consult you on putting a renter in your house and getting 1 month's rent, $1,400, $1,500, $2,000 to just get on the phone with them and help them find a renter and use my system to here's how we do it. And the coaching client will get $1,500 to just explain to the seller, this is how you do it, and help them do it.
And that is the mass for our 100,000 name list. That's kind of the process. But like you touched on at the beginning of the podcast, we have another kind of business that actually is replicating your internship program for lease options to be set up for creative deals. So that's a whole different marketing and follow-up process that is exactly what you teach in that program. So we kind of have that, but that for the main cold calling and figuring out where does this lead need to go, what bucket, that's how we follow that. But the other one is more targeted towards specific types of properties in specific locations that are catered to creative deals like lease options.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. So that's a whole nother system, another set of VAs. Okay. So we're almost done here, as long as you guys are cool with the questions, because it seems like you have a lot of interest. So how do you find money for the deals?
We don't really, wholesaling, you don't need a bunch of money.
No, can't be.
How many different $10 bills do you need to make deals happen for earnest money?
We do use private equity for creative deals, but for wholesaling, it's a volume game. We're just trying to get to 4 transactions a month, and and we need $40, $10 per deal for earnest money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we do have private money through family that we're working on building that list.
Yep.
But for those creative deals that do come through, we have some resources.
Yeah, all you need to do, Randy, with that, and you know this, is to just do a couple deals with those people and swell the Greek glands, and they'll start doing it for you. It'll grow.
Yeah.
And you make a couple deals, and they make 20 grand, and they're like, "Oh my God, you know what Randy and Brad did for me?" And they'll start telling everybody. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
So really, the truth of the matter is to really fumble through your first deal or two, you know, calling the bandit sign, like you said, getting $3 grand, and stuffing that in your marketing. That's really where it's at. It's buying the list, and you know. I mean, it sounds like you guys have a lot of expenses, but when you break it down, I mean, when you're hiring VAs for $4 or $5 an hour, you know, I don't know how much the call tools cost you. Podio is, I think it's free, but we're using like a $30 a month pro version. You know what I mean? I mean, it sounds like a lot of money, but it really isn't as much as you would think. It's not 10 grand a month or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know you guys are spending money, but it's not horrendous, correct?
Well, it does get, it's a comfortable thing. At first, you don't spend that much, but you know,
Right.
in order to get through 20,000 numbers, you got to have a lot of VAs cold calling on it.
That's right.
So it does, you grow into it. And, but at first, no, it's, you use a targeted list. And I would put in systems in place to allow that to always be working. And
Right.
Randy and I have a funny story that we were on a business trip playing golf, and we first started putting the system in place, and we were playing, you know, sitting in the car together, and our phones were going off with leads coming in, and we were like, man, we're sitting here playing golf, and we got leads coming into our phone that people are doing work, and it was a breath of fresh air for what we had been doing with the oil business, where it was us doing that work, and now we were seeing that happening behind the scenes. Is great.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's the best story I heard so far. When you have that, aha, it can really work.
Yeah.
All right, good. So how do you figure out the maximum you could pay for a deal? Is it just the Mayo formula, or you kind of already explained that, I think, but.
Well,
By the way, before you start, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I find it amazing because this happened to me many years ago, and I've noticed that it happens to everybody else. You said it's 55% of ARV, because when you do the Mayo formula, it runs between 45 and 55%. So go ahead. I just want to throw that out there because it's a shortcut.
Yeah, right. It's for every market is different. We've come at it from two different angles. So just to kind of get a feel for it. One of them is blending your Zillows, your PropStream, your Redfins, kind of blending those together, doing a 70% minus rehab, getting a feel for that number. But what we also do is we look at what are buyers buying in the area. So we look at cash sales, and we look at those properties because we're realtors. We have access to the MLS. Texas is a non-disclosure state. So we can go look at what are people actually buying on the MLS. What are they paying cash in this area? Right. And then that way we can kind of know, okay, here's my 70% minus ARV. Here are the cash sales, and kind of get a good idea of what are houses moving for.
You had mentioned before PropStream, which you can go if you want to pay me a commission. If you don't, that's fine. But it's flippinghousesforrookies.com/PropStream, or just go to PropStream.com if you want to beat me out of my commission, which is totally fine. The important thing is that when you could put in a property or an address or a zip code, and there's actually a button on PropStream to show all the cash deals in the area, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a great tool to find that. And by the way, I use that with my coaching clients, because if you have a list of 400 people in your city that paid cash for a house, that's a great list for private money, or hard money, or whatever you want to call it.
And ultimately, the idea is, if you know your buyers, if you have a couple of good buyers and you know what they're buying at, then that's the ultimate. If I know who my guys and what they're looking for, that's what I need to know. And so that's just a tool to kind of, if you don't know those buyers, go look at what those buyers are paying in the area.
Right. So
here's
real quick, Brad. I have an evaluation of you guys in your business that I have not told you. So I'm going to publicly do it now.
All
I
right.
noticed your business expand when you flipped the business backwards. Because what I noticed is just what you're saying right now is when your business expanded. When you figured out what your buyers wanted, you went and found it, made your system that way, and started selling it to them. Because I know that you have some big wholesalers you're dealing with. And I know because I talked to Brad mostly about this, you figured out, which was so genius, you figured out what was needed and wanted, and you went and got it and gave it to them. You didn't try to force the system into your environment. You just indigenously figured out, like, what's the bait the bass is eating, so I could go figure out how to catch them. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
I noticed when you did that, and I don't know if you guys were as clear on that in your head, maybe you were, but when you switched that from, like, we're looking for deals and we want to replace our income, to, okay, what are people buying? And you ran into a few of these wholesalers and you started asking some good questions, like, okay, so why are you paying this much money, and how many do you want, and what do you buy? And you started asking the right questions, and you switched it. Agreed? And then
100%.
business took off. And then you went and you started figuring out how to get these lists and how to get the VAs and how to ramp it up. Right?
100%. Another tip I wanted to add to on the most that you can pay is, we get all of our competitors' wholesale deals as well. I mean, just every day, just 20, 30, 40 wholesale deals. So now when we get a prospect for a lead come in and we're getting close to it, we actually just search that zip code in our email box and we pull up all the deals that we've gotten over the past 6 months of deals in that zip code. And we go through and look at them. And then we'll double check that even against the MLS or against the tax records to actually chain out how it played out. And we kind of get a better idea of, like, well, here's an actual wholesale deal that was on the market. Here's what it actually sold for. And that helps us. It's kind of an art form, so we're able to, like, kind of put it all together.
So you're using your email to comp the properties?
Yeah, we just type in the zip code, pull up all the deals that have been selling, compare that to where we were at, and then that either helps validate and correlate the information, or maybe we even can go up more.
Dump it.
Or dump it.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's genius.
I actually email the VA and I say, hey, just so you have confidence when you're talking to them, because they're the ones that are actually building the rapport in those follow-up calls. So, like, if it gets down between like 55% and 75% of the ARV, it's not going to be a wholesale deal. But I'll tell them, like, so you can have confidence when you're telling them why we got to be priced where we're at. I'll send them a lead that we got from an email from another deal and I'll tell them what it sold at. So they can say, hey, listen, a block down, just a month ago, it sold for, whatever the number was. And he has that confidence to know that he's not just throwing numbers out, that there is some truth behind it.
Get on those wholesale database. They'll tell you what to offer.
That's
what we're saying. As many as you can.
Oh my God. That's so genius. All right, good. Couple more questions. We're going to get out of here. You guys this is so amazing. Thank you so much. I'm sure this is just an amazing podcast.
So, I'm taking notes.
Yeah, Peter's not even talking in the background. He's just writing. So how do you figure repairs? Kind
of the same. It's kind of the same thing. Like, we kind of view repairs a little bit subjective to what the investor wants to do with a property, and even who they use for their crew or what materials. And one investor may, for the same job, be significantly more expensive or less expensive based off of their connections. And so it depends. So we kind of use repairs. We know that these are motivated people for the most part. These are wholesale deals. They got a lot of repairs that need to be done. We know cosmetic stuff needs to be done. We're just trying to gather all that information to use that in our negotiation to get it as low as possible. But at the end of the day, it's more about knowing our buyers. We don't really try and advertise all the repairs that are necessarily needed. That's the due diligence of our buyer. So it kind of sounds silly, but we don't really have to come up with an exact number because we're trying to get it as low as possible, and then we're just seeing if it works.
There you go. Pete, he was so polite about it, right?
What?
Because if I was him, you asked that question, it'd be like, who gives a shit? That's how I would answer that question. Because if you're at 55 cents on a dollar, you're right. Let the guy that's buying it, let him go figure it out.
All right.
Yeah, if he comes back and says, oh my God, this thing needs, blah, blah, blah. You go back to your seller and say, it's 45 cents on a dollar, not because
Exactly.
you didn't tell me blah, blah, blah. Or
Let
you
the
send
buyer
another
tell
guy out there and get another opinion, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Our job is to get the property under contract for as low as we
Right.
can and to find a buyer that pays the most. And if we find that there's a problem with that, then we'll renegotiate and we'll use actual numbers. The buyer can tell us exactly what the problem is, and then we can take that to the seller. Exactly like you said.
And these are motivated people, so we're not haggling with them as much because they're just, let's solve the problem, and that was an issue, and that's why we got to reduce the price. Okay, they may not be happy about it, but
Yeah. So that's awesome. So repairs is not an issue. You don't even deal with that. And
It's more of a
you just use the right
negotiation
numbers-
tool.
Yep.
If we can come up with something,
Yeah. Good. All right. Good. So, how much time do you think you spend on each deal?
I'd say probably about 3 to 4 hours. If it's, by the time it gets to us, all the processes of putting the purchase and sales agreement together and the disposition side, probably 3 to 4 hours.
Good. Okay. And do you ever second guess yourself? Like how to
all the time.
How do you handle that?
Yeah, you'll always fall back to the paralysis by analysis, time and time again. You think you know something, and you hear something that says it's the wrong thing to do. And what we fall back on is if you have a foundation, if you have a business with a foundation of principles, of the 7 strategies, you have your equities in line, at this equity percentage, that this is what I do. You just got to fall back on that and just trust
Follow
the
your
system.
rules. Yep.
Follow your rules and get creative where you can and try to bend them where you can to make better solutions. But when you start second guessing yourself too much, bounce your ideas off of somebody else, but just fall back to your system and your foundation of, you put those in place for a reason to protect yourself. So.
Yeah, and I asked that question because that's usually what I get the phone call from Brad is, hey, we got this deal. We're not sure.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The coaching group is where that really comes in play as well. And as you've seen, it just in our group, there's people just asking all the time, like, hey, here's the situation. Is this a deal? What do y'all think? And it helps clear up that second guess as well.
Yeah. So my answer to that question, and not that you're asking me the question because I was asking you, but at the end of the day, here's the real technical answer on second guessing yourself. If you can bring a property to the market and not be obligated to close, like a lease option or like you're under contract and you're doing your due diligence, if you can bring it to the market, that's the solution. So like with you guys, you sign a purchase and sales contract and you're going to wholesale it. They know what you're doing. They're aware of it up front because you disclosed it, and you bring it to the market, AKA your 4 or 5 or 6 wholesalers. And if they all come back and say, oh, did you know a tornado hit the house? Then you got 4 people telling you that. You got to go back to your seller and say, what's up with this tornado that hit the house? Oh, I didn't tell you that. Or what are you talking about? Because I haven't been there in 5 years. Or, And Randy, you brought up a very valid point. We kind of slid right by it, but it's like Go Look Now, that website.
We Go Look.
Right? Oh, We Go Look. Yeah, We Go Look. I think it's what, $150 or $200 to have them go out and take pictures. Right?
Yeah.
So we're.
Whoa!
Oh, it's thunder. Scared the shit out of me. I see you jump. I don't.
They really emphasized that point. We Go Look.
I saw the lightning first, and it didn't bother me. I didn't expect the bang. But the point is that a picture's worth 1,000 words. You get pictures, and you start. You do show and tell with your seller over the phone. You're gonna, either they're in a position that they just can't sell, so that means that you're not going to lose the deal. Everybody's going to lose the deal, or you're going to be the person there on the hook and saying, here's what we can do.
Yeah, and what we found is that at least in the volume wholesaling model, we want to get it under contract and we want to see those pictures. We used to go out to every single appointment, and I think those are important. When you're getting into creative deals, there's a big trust factor that you gotta. That's a toe-to-toe kind of situation if possible. But for wholesaling, we found that we would ask them, I'm coming out here to buy a house, so would you be ready to sign? And they say, yes. You get out there, you're in the middle of your presentation, and you got you know, We Buy Ugly Houses knocking on the door for their appointment, and you're wasting your time because they're just shopping you around, and in this market, at least in wholesaling. So it's just a numbers game more than a relationship game when it comes to that. So having something like We Go Look, getting it under contract, getting the pictures back, and then analyzing. Once you have something that you know is real, that you can control, once you have control of the property, that's what we found success with.
That's awesome. All right, good. So I think we're going to end off with what advice would you give listeners that do what you do? Any kind of like words of wisdom that you would like to pass on to the youngins?
I think it would be to get past the fog of education and just go get into a deal. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but just put yourself out there to learn forward, fall forward, like get yourself out there and talk to that seller and get that first deal under contract. And then once you get that, you can learn a lot. It may not work out, but remember, like you said, it's an agreement. So my advice would be to just take a leap of faith and make the phone calls, sit in front of those sellers, talk to them, and then just do what you can to get in a contract. We did so many deals in the beginning too that we way overpriced, and we literally got laughed at when we tried to go market it. So it's okay. It's part of the process, and you learn from it. So I think that would be my piece of advice, is because everyone's strategy is going to be different of what they want to do, wholesaling, creative financing, all that. But at the end of the day, you got to sit there and talk to the seller and learn from those mistakes, and just take that leap of faith and get some courage and talk to them.
And to add on to that, I would add getting that courage. Reading books just causes, and articles causes more questions than answers for me. And so having someone, if you know that you could go get into a situation that if you don't know the answer, you have somebody to turn to, that really helps eliminate the fog. So like joining your program makes me feel confident whenever I'm getting into a situation. If I get the right answers, I can bring it to the group, bring it to Bill, and say, hey, I got this under contract. What does it look like? You know, what are my options here? What are my strategies? And that brings a lot of confidence to just taking action.
Especially nowadays, because we use the WhatsApp group and you get instant answers. You know,
right.
Yeah.
80% of the group is doing deals.
Absolutely.
So it's like, just type it in there and it's like pop, it comes back, right?
Yeah.
But I will say, from a business standpoint, you know, that's getting out there and doing your first deal. I think follow up, and we haven't really talked about it to the level that everybody gets followed up with, regardless what they say, if they want a deal or not. Whether they didn't answer the phone, whether they answered the phone, whether they told us no, there's a follow-up system that's in place, and that's where most of our deals are coming from. Is not the first month, first call. It's in the follow-up of after we talk to them, and then calling back in a month and seeing if it changed, because someone else is going to call them and ask for a deal too. So it doesn't stop, and I think that's probably where a lot of deals get lost, is not following up.
Sound familiar, Pete?
Sure does.
Time changes everything.
Yeah. I knew this guy. No, never mind. There was a guy once. There was a lady. Always a guy. There's always a lady. There's a house.
All right, good. Guys, this is absolutely, I can't thank you enough for what you guys have done. I don't know if you want to do this. I'm sure there are going to be wholesalers that listen to this and other people that might want to reach out to you. Just if you're going to give contact information, just realize there are going to be students that are going to want to answer your questions and not waste your time, but they are going to be curious. So is there a way that somebody could reach you if they have a deal, or if they want to do a deal, or if they want to, like, anything along that lines?
Yeah, we don't really do the Instagram, Facebook stuff, but we have an email that goes to both of us, info@hillcreekre.com, HILLCREEKRE.com, or Randy or Brad at hillcreekre.com, whichever one.
So just send your deal.
Do you like one of us over the other?
Hey, yeah, exactly. So say it again. It's info@
hillcreekre.com.
hillcreekre.com. So send an email, or either one of you, Brad at hillcreekre.com, or Randy, spelled with a Y, RANDY, at hillcreek.com. So if you have a deal, or you More importantly, maybe there's somebody out there that has some money and they want to invest with you guys because you're pretty clever.
Absolutely.
Anything like that or questions, just shoot them an email. Fantastic guys. They've been with me for some time now. I've watched them build this business, and just I can't say enough about you guys. You're really savvy business guys, and I know as a coach, I'm very proud of what you guys are doing. And I feel like we've only just like taken your training wheels off. It's like, how they're going to do when they crawl onto their Harley in their 20s? You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, they're going to be beasts.
Well, thank you for everything you've done. I mean, we couldn't be where we're at without your help. So
thank you.
It's been phenomenal.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Peter, do you have any closing words?
These two guys are very impressive. Makes me feel like going to work today.
There you go.
Actually, during the podcast, no, I do.
Hey, Pete, I gotta bust your balls. You notice neither one of them talked about working with their wives.
Yeah, they got each other.
Sorry, Pete. I had to give that one to you.
Keep at it, Bill. He just oh yeah, watch me. No, I have her working. Like, we worked it out. Like, when you have a business that you don't make any money till you sell a house, you don't get anything from it. There's no reward. It sucks. So we have this deal. Like, for every hour we work, we get $1 an hour. And when we get enough money, she gets a new dish set. And then it'll be the next thing. But I actually figured something out in the podcast.
Imagine if he was that creative doing deals.
Doing deals, yeah.
Bill, this is just buying me time to get the work in so I can be creative. No, but actually I debugged something here because she's running into some trouble doing the internship program. She's just putting all the details through and gets lost in some stuff. How do you do this? So I figure I'll run interference in any difficulty she runs in instead of letting her just try to get through it all. So I'll be helping her with any like the WhatsApp and just finding some of those details because I wasn't on the trainings. That happened while I was working. So she did the training. So, it's like she knows stuff, I know stuff, and you can't tell your wife what you know.
I do, but we all know how that turns out.
Yeah, where's your wife?
Yeah, whatever.
Hey, Bill,
whatever.
Where's your wife now, Bill?
Yeah, she's 2 hours away from me right now. And I'm going home, and she'll be 1,200 miles away from me. She's working, making money. So she comes home in a month, so that's good. All right, guys, we're going to end off a little bit longer than today. Today, I think we were a couple hours today, but I can't say thank you enough. If any of the listeners have any questions, you could send in a support ticket at flippinghousesforrookies.com. And I can either send you Randy and Brad's email, or he's already given it to you. Just send it in, and especially if you got deals, especially because I know you guys are in Texas, but you're looking to do some remote locations. So don't let the location scare you because you guys are definitely doing stuff virtually. Okay. The last thing I want to say, Peter, what's the next episode number?
200.
Yay! We made it. Huh? We're supposed to have a party and all this kind of stuff, but with the way things are, that's not going to happen. So it's going to have
virtual party.
Virtual party, yeah.
I have no idea what we're going to do yet. It's a week away, so we'll have to figure something out. So, all right, guys, I'm going to shut the recordings off. You can just hang tight right there. And thanks for being with us, okay?
Yeah, thanks, you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.